Okay, very good.
Okay, now I can begin. Yes.
Yeah, well,
So, good evening, this time from Potsdam. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. I am delighted to welcome you today to our 8th workshop of the Children After War, Holocaust and Genocide project. Children After the War, Holocaust and Genocide is one of the projects at the Holocaust Studies program of the Western Galilee College in Akko, alongside the focus areas Holocaust and War and Medicine and the Holocaust. We are live here today in Potsdam, as this workshop is taking place in cooperation with the Moses Mendelssohn Center here in Potsdam. And I would like to thank Professor Miriam Rürup and Dr. Verena for this nice cooperation. And above all, of course, my friendly colleague, Dr. Olaf Glöcker, who is a senior researcher at the center. Like its predecessors, Children in Crisis number 8, by the way, the project was founded in 2016-17 by Dr. Boaz Cohen, who is here today, also live, and me. It aims to facilitate an exchange between past and present. The best practices and mixed methods, which were invented and applied in the past after World War II and the Holocaust, are a little forgotten knowledge today. Thus, it's our aim to translate this historical knowledge about the rehabilitation of children from then for today's world. This evening, it's an exception. We have an Israeli panel, which deals with different perspectives or angles on child rehabilitation. And as all of you know, on 7th of October 2023, thousands of Hamas terrorists, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Al-Qassam, and supported by civilians from Gaza, entered Israeli territory and murdered more than 1,300 people in Israel. At least 40 children were murdered and whole families were slaughtered in the southern border communities and in cities like Sderot. So today we have 3 experts with us who deal with explicitly with Israeli children who witnessed the crimes committed by Hamas and its supporters on October 7 and were abducted to Gaza and released after weeks of Hamas captivity. Unfortunately, others are still there among the more than 130 hostages. And we have a very rare perspective because Ada is today with us and she will give us insights about building a school for children who were evacuated from the south on and after the 7th of October. And this is an important issue because I think the world is speaking about refugees in the Gaza Strip, but let's not forget then that 250,000 Israelis became internally displaced refugees, among them at least 50 to 60,000 children. I would like to thank now the 3 speakers for their impressive work and now hand over to my colleague Olaf, who is our distinguished moderator today.
yeah, thank you very much, Verena, for this kind introduction. First of all, I would like to especially thank to you and Boaz for having been organized this series of workshops, Children in Crisis, for a number of years. And we, as the Moses Mendelssohn Center, we are very happy to host this workshop for the first time. You have already mentioned that we have 3 experts here from Israel, Professor Carmit Katz, Efrat Bron-Harlev, and Gebel, and they will confront us with very difficult and dramatic developments. And Carmit, Efrat, and Ida are all scientists on the one side, but also practitioners at the same time, and they experience the situation of the affected Israeli children up close. And I think this is also one of the reasons that we cannot welcome our colleagues here now in persona in Potsdam, but perhaps such an opportunity will open in future times. So I think now let's go straight into the issues and not waste any time. We will start with Dr. Efrat Bron-Harlev from Petah, Tikwa. She is the CEO of Schneider Children's Medical Center in Petah, Tikwa. Some short notes to her academic career and professional way. Efrat did after army service in the IDF in the 1980s. She has studied public administration at Harvard and medicine at the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. In 1994, she completed internship at Beilinson Hospital, began pediatric residency, followed by a fellowship in pediatric critical care at Schneider Children's Medical Center. In 2002, she became senior critical care physician, and in 2005, information director of Glöcker HMO and medical director of electronic medical records for Glöcker's 14 hospitals. In 2007, she became the deputy director of Rabin Medical Center, and in 2016, the medical director of the Glöcker's Northern District. Since 2019, Efrat has been the general director of Beilinson Hospital, and in October 2020, then she was appointed as the CEO of Schneider's Children's Medical Center. Efrat will speak now on child hostages after their release. So thank you for coming, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I actually didn't remember that I've done so many things in my life. Thank you for reminding me. And thank you for hosting me here. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and please just let me know that you see the screen.
We see it.
Okay, yeah. Great. So I need to tell you a little bit about the background of our hospital and about myself. So I'm an only child to actually a Holocaust survivor, my mother, who was a very young child when she came from Bulgaria after just at the declaration of independence of Israel. She was a very young child. And my dad, who was born in Israel, but his mother was from Berlin. She was a dentist there. She came here before the war. I myself have 4 sons. 2 of them are combat pilots at the Israeli Air Force. One was in artillery, the other was in intelligence. So all of them are have been or are still soldiers. And a little bit background about children in Israel. So we are about to become 10 million Israelis. 1/3 of the Israeli population are children, and it might sound a little strange, but even when we will be 100 years old in 2048, we anticipate that Israel will still be 1/3 children. So I know the situation in Germany is very different. You're at about 0.8 children per family, and we're at about almost three children per family in average. Of course, different denominations, different backgrounds, and this is how the story of Schneider began about 33 years ago, when it was obvious that Israel also needs a pediatric hospital, so that we will, think in the pediatric way, speak what we call the language of the children. And so this hospital opened about 33 years ago. It's a very multidisciplinary hospital. There is no part of pediatric care that we do not do. At Schneider's, we really do everything. But when we talk about a child, it's not only about the disease of the child, it's rather about looking at the child in a very wholesome way, to promise them not only healthy life, but also a very good quality of life, to understand the complexity of a child and their culture, to understand the family, and to see how within that time that they are at Schneider's children, they do not only receive the best medical care, but we really look at them in a very wholesome way. So, Israel is a very diverse country. We are a completely public system. So I think this is about the only place in Israel where we say that children are really above and beyond everything, and that really comes to life. So in such a situation where you have those two very young neonates that suffer from a cardiac disease, for example, and need to undergo a cardiac surgery, you would also see these two parents, an ultra-Orthodox Jew father and an ultra-Orthodox Muslim mother, being in the same room, but not only that, really talking to one another, as you can see in this photo. And this is our everyday life, understanding that children are above and beyond, that the very basic common denominator is child and child health, and they are the future of our country and of the world. And so in a very informal way, we kind of see people that would never speak to each other, understand that there is a lot more in common than there is not. And then there is a time of war. These two photos were taken just at the beginning of this war, when suddenly you have to move children from one place to another within the hospital, and you have to take care of them. And we always say that we take care of the children as if they were our own. On the right-hand side, you see some of our NICU children being taken out of their cradles, moving out to the staircases. Of course, this is an impossible situation, and we had to shift on October 7th many of our children from one place to another within the hospital, to fortified areas, to very secure areas. You can see here in these photos how many people it takes of our staff in order just to move one very small but very ill patient from one place to another. But by the end of October 7th, at about 7 p.m., we finished all that. So we moved great parts of our hospital from one area to another in order to keep the children very, very safe. This is another example of sandbags in our windows in areas that are not sheltered. And of course, during those first days after putting everyone in secure areas, it was obvious that we have to continue to take care of children because the war does not stop them from being ill. So this is just one example of a child that underwent a liver transplantation, a Jewish child from Ethiopian ancestry. And on the other side of the bed is a mother of the soldier that was killed, and actually they donated his organs in order for many other Israelis, it doesn't matter where they're from or who they are, so that they will receive their lives back. And this little girl received part of the liver of this lady's son. And this is just part of what we deal with, even though there is a war. But once we understood that we prepared the hospital to receive children who might be hurt, who might need our help, it took a few days to understand that we are actually not going to receive any children, because very small amount of children were actually wounded during that first terrible day of October 7th. They were treated in Soroka. Others, as you mentioned before, were butchered and did not get to any hospital, and that was extremely terrifying and sad. But the other two groups of children were either children that were evacuated to other places around Israel, and the last group, and it took us a while to understand how large that group was, were 38 children who were kidnapped from the age of 8 months until the age of 18. This is what, when we talk about children, it's up to the age of 18, even though 19 and 20 are also children, but still not our pediatric world. And so we started thinking of that time of waiting and waiting. And what you see here are 38 ducks that were a way for us to symbolize those 38 children that are missing. And so for some of the children here at the hospital to just be playing around with those ducks, but for us it was waiting period for them. Then we turned them into pink flamingos, but just two yellow ducks that are still the Bibas brothers who did not come back. But while we were within that time, we were planning on what will we do once the children are back. We were really obsessive with that to make sure that when they come back, and hopefully that they will come back as soon as possible, we will be the ones to receive them. And while planning, we understood that until that day of November 24th, that we did not know when that day would come and when that first helicopter will land. But we were hoping it will be sooner than later. And we started trying to understand what should we do. So, you know, this is a slide that I've made especially for you, because I've talked about it with a few people of should we actually think of those children when we look back at history to see any other situations where children were under captivity for a long time. And of course, the first thing that comes into our mind is the Holocaust and the Holocaust survivors and the children that were survivors of the Holocaust and what became of them. And this sentence that is written down on this slide, always do your best and never forget that you are somebody. It's from this book that is called Survivors. But the amazing thing, the reason why I put it here is because I heard from one of the mothers who came back that she told one of her children, always remember that we have a meaning for every day that is going on here in Gaza. And I think that when you read more and more from the Holocaust stories and you hear about, especially about women and mothers that were together with their children, these are also, and you know much more about this than me, the ones who were surviving maybe in a better way because they were together with them and could help each other. But other ways to learn from history, we actually did not have. So we tried to figure out our own protocols of what we should do. And the easiest part was, of course, the medical part for us to prepare for, because this is like our everyday, and it doesn't matter how hard they are, how bad their medical condition is. But it was also obvious that if we don't know we don't know something, the first thing that we should do is do no harm. And I think that as we went along, of thinking about how we're going to communicate with them, how safe we want them to feel, how will we communicate with their families, but then also how will we prepare for them to go home once they're released, all of these were prepared in advance. So just to give you some idea of this preparation, of course, just a few hours before they landed, we knew who was coming, and then we were sitting with the IDF forces who had all the information about those families, and we were sitting with this family tree of the patient to understand a little more about what I now call their different chapters in life. The first chapter being up to October 6th, and that is that family tree that you know who is whom, who is speaking to whom, who is divorced, how is the family built. The second chapter is, of course, October 7th, who was kidnapped, who was killed, whose girlfriend it is, whose boyfriend it is, and so on and so on. But these are the two chapters that we could know about. The third chapter we knew nothing about, and that was the chapter of captivity. But we also knew that the fourth chapter is the chapter that starts the minute they land. And so within that minute, we understood that we have a very big responsibility, not only for their medical care that we will give them, but for everything surrounding that. So from the first minute, and this is the helicopter after landing next to our hospital, we understand that they must be very safe and to feel very secure and to understand what's going on with them. So I went on the helicopter and started looking at them, watching them, see how they are, but also explaining to them minute by minute of what is going to happen to them. Like this route that we've made in order to create a place that will be safe for them at the entrance to the hospital, that they know that they're going into a place that is Israel and not just a tunnel that is somewhere that is not safe. And we explain to them, I would say meter by meter, that they're now going to walk through this pathway, and then we will go up the elevator and enter the ward. I think that going into the smallest details, including the door signs and understanding exactly who is going to be in each room and how we divide between the families and who is going to be where, was one of the most important things in order for these families to feel that they are in a home at the hospital. So, we always talk about a hospital at home, but this was a situation where we tried to make the hospital as homey as possible for them. So we prepared those rooms in advance while we knew exactly who might be sleeping in that room, not only from the captive who came back, but also from the other family members who would want to stay with them, the size of the clothes, the colors of the clothes, and even their favorite deodorant, or really going into the smallest details so that they will be able to feel at home at the hospital. I think that preparing for this meeting, this second of a meeting between a father and his son, and this is Ohad, the father, and in the back, the uncle, is something that even though we did not have a lot of time with the families ahead of time, but the very basic was to be as flexible as possible for that minute to happen so that they can have their privacy if they want it, so that they can have their time to be with their families, with the captive who came back, as long as we see from a side that they're okay physically, to give them that emotional period of meeting with the children and with their mothers and even one grandmother that we saw. I think there was quite a big difference between the young and the older children that came. So the younger kids, you have to listen to every word that they say in order to understand a little bit from what they've gone through. For example, this is Abigail, who lost both of her parents during that day of October 7th. And Abigail was actually brought to their neighbor's house with the Avichai, but then the neighbor Hagar and her 3 children with Abigail were kidnapped. So Hagar was there with her 3 children and with Abigail, while Abigail actually knew that both her parents were killed because she saw that happening in front of her face. So when she came back, and this is her aunt in the photo with her, it was important for us first to listen and not to ask questions. But she did talk, and she did tell a lot about what went with her through that period, even though she's just 4 years old. And the other 2 very young children were these twins, Emma and Yuli, the daughters of Sharon and David Cunio. So Sharon came back with her twins, but David was left behind, and he's still there. And it was amazing to see that even though they're 3 years old, and you see this photo was taken about a week after they came back, because they stayed with us for a whole week. They came very pale, very skinny, very quiet, very silent, did not even cry or laugh or get out of the room for the first day. But one of them, Yuli, did ask once again and again and again from the first day that she was taken to captivity, how is the man that was pouring in red? For those of you who understand Hebrew, מה שלום האיש שנשפך באדום? And that question was because a soldier was put over her on the cart that she was taken to Gaza, and he was bleeding to death. But what she cared about, and a 3 years old who cares about that person, was to keep asking how he is. So while we were listening and understanding that she's a very caring person, even though she's just 3 years old, we understood that this is really one of the things that we should deal with emotionally once she's there. So we've made those areas, as you see, for them to play and to invite their friends if they're older children, or even to bring their pet from home. So these are the Brodet's family with their dog. And what we understood is that within those what we call the healthy areas of the ward, not the sleeping rooms, but rather the playing rooms, this was the place where they talked more, where they shared their experience within those 50 or 52 days. And this is where they really felt at home with their families and with whoever was there with. We celebrated Shabbat evening, as you see here on the left-hand side. And then altogether, within that period of time of about 13 days, that we received 26 returnees in 3 pulses, 19 children, 6 mothers, and 1 grandmother. We didn't do it by ourselves. Of course, we had a very specialized team. You can see here the amount of people that were and the different specialties that were within that ward. That's not a lot of people for one ward. We chose each and every one of them very strictly. And of course, we had many other external relationship, as I said, mainly with the IDF that was working together with us, but with the police, Shabak, and many other centers that were helping us from outside of Schneider's in order to see how they will continue with their lives. And I think looking at this last photo, Gali, who is 14 years old, she was there but almost by herself most of the time. She was told there that there is no more Israel, that nobody cares for her, that nobody loves her anymore, that her family is not looking for her, and that she will stay in Gaza forever. And you see this photo about 2 weeks after she was released. She came back to say thank you, but the most important thing that we were very happy about is that she said that we brought faith back to her. And I think that was the main issue for us with all these children, and we are happy that we did it. So thank you very much. I really ran over this very quickly. And of course, if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Efrat. Of course, it's difficult, I think, to ask any question after what you were presenting us right now. I was asked that people who want to formulate any question now, they just put it in the chat, and we can read it from here, or Yaron if he wants. So, but the floor is open for any questions.
Can we ask a question?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Beatrice. I worked in the Western Galilee with Boaz. I say hello to Boaz. I had a question for you, Efrat. How did you deal, after we received so many of the children, how did you deal with the team after they left? How do you go back to a normal, like a normal laugh, normal, you know, could they did it, or they had to take vacation to get over what they experienced?
Well, it's a great question. I think it's now more than double the time. It's like 50 or 60 days since they came back. I think that partially all of us that were in that ward are still living that moment until now. And I think that some of us actually prefer to keep that as we go along and as we continue, even while they were at the hospital. We still did many other things as well, and not just worked at that ward. I have to say that during this whole war, and especially since they came back, this is what is keeping us, the caregivers, normal or sane. When I'm in the hospital, I feel normal. When I leave the hospital, I feel less normal, I would say. but I don't think it's a good answer, because I really know that we will need to talk about this more. We did do many debriefings during that time. Whoever needed some personal talks, of course, could receive it from our teams, but still, we just feel, all of us, that we are still in the middle of this. I think that when this will be over, we will need to figure out of how to release those thoughts about whatever we've been going through, like many other Israelis, of course, as you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a question by Saha Otsaki to all. Just a second. She's asking, no, it's just a comment. Much admiration to the medical team for your amazing work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And more questions, please.
I think people are overwhelmed,
Yeah.
so we don't have to force the question.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, yes.
Hello, I have a question. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Please. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. I mean, it's such a trauma to prepare for people. I just wondered how you were able to maybe separate some adults and children if they came together, because I understand that you're primarily looking at the world of the child. I imagine, did you have to take some people, adults and children, together?
Yes, well, whoever we received during those 3 pulses were families. So like a family would be a grandmother, a daughter, and a grandson. Of course, because we are a pediatric hospital, we were there to receive all of them because of the grandson, but we did not separate them. We did allow them to be like in 2 separate rooms, of course, or sometimes even 3. We had a whole family who came back, a mother, 2 sons, and that were pretty young, and like an adolescent girl. So we let the mother have her own room, the girl have her own room, and the 2 sons, and some other members were staying with them. So we were very flexible about how they're going to feel. As I said, make a home at a hospital. But we did that according to what their wishes was. And just to take care of the adults was, medically, was pretty easy for us, because we brought in to the pediatric hospital adult physicians that would take care of them if there was a need. But to keep them together as a family was something extremely important, the way we saw it, and it worked out very, very well. It was actually very nice to see a mother like Sharon Cunio with her twins that did not let them go even 1 centimeter away from her during those 52 days. And then the first day, she did not let them go. The second day, they could already, they already walked a little bit with some other family member, like 2 meters away from her. And the third day, they already went to play by themselves in the playroom. And you could see how that is emerging as the days went by, and as they felt more and more like children, and like a mom that can just let go for just a little bit and have some time to herself.
Thank you. That's incredible. And to see their sort of trauma start to wash away in that environment must have been wonderful too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Verena?
Yeah, I would like to ask, you raised this important issue, I think, of language, to understand the language of the children. And can you elaborate a little bit on this?
So when we say the language of the children, of course, we don't mean Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, or Amharic. We usually do that when we treat children, depending on their age, depending on their culture. It's very different to tell a 3-year-old child that has new diabetes or cancer, or to talk to a 14-year-old child who has new diabetes or cancer. But it's also different if it's an ultra-Orthodox Jew who comes from Bnei Brak, or if it's a secular Jew, or if it's a Druze that comes from the northern district of Israel, etc., etc. So I think that when we say that we speak the language of the children, it means that we consider many aspects of their lives in order to help them cope with the situation that they're at the hospital. Nobody wants to come to a hospital. It's not a place that you plan to come to. It's not a place that you prefer to come to. But once you're there, we have to give those children the right tools, and it's not the same tools for all the children. You have to give them the right tools according to their culture, according to their ability, according to their family's ability, etc. And for that, you have to first understand their language, meaning their culture, meaning where they come from, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Efrat, for sharing us all this experience. I think it needs time to work it out, and we wish you a lot of power and good nerve for the coming days and weeks. And work is probably not becoming much easier.
Thank you.
So take care and wishing lots of power. And now we're gonna switch to our next speaker, which would be Carmit Katz now. Carmit, thank you very much for changing, for being so flexible, and we will stay more or less in the same topic. But I want to give some short notes about your CV and what you have done and your position. Carmit Katz is a full professor at the School of Social Work at Tel Aviv University and the executive director of the Haruv Institute. Her main field of research is child abuse. Carmit is the founder and director of the Israeli Independent Public Inquiry into Child Abuse. She's also the founder and director of the international group of scholars protecting children from maltreatment during times of global crisis, which is, to our knowledge, recognized internationally as a leading group in protecting children's rights. Carmit is also an associate editor in Child Abuse and Neglect and the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Child Maltreatment. Her topic of today is when innocence was stolen, children held hostage by Hamas. Carmit, thanks very much for coming, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Olaf. Good evening, everyone. I will share my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so as Olaf mentioned in the introduction, my main area of research and activities is child abuse. And in October 7th, I found myself, like the rest of my people in Israel, dealing with a sudden attack on Israel by Hamas terror organization. And as someone who's doing advocacy and research on children, we identified that the Haruv unique groups of children that we're especially worried about. So children hostages of Hamas, which will be the focus of my short presentation, children who witnessed severe violence and the massacre, children who lost both of their parents, children who lost one parent and or a sibling, children whose friends and peers were kidnapped or killed, and children who were evacuated from their homes. So for each one of those groups, we have a very big project with the welfare office in Israel and the education office in Israel and the health office in Israel in order to ensure that those children and those rights are being taken care of. But today I want to take you to a very short journey on child hostages. And we're talking about, of course, the 40 child hostages. And today we have 38 children in Israel. And our starting point so in Haruv, together with the welfare office in Israel, we took the lead in organizing all the system in Israel in order to receive the children. So Efrat provide you a very zoom in into what Schneider was doing, and now we're going to do a zoom out, okay? And I want to take you a bit about the principles that we developed and the various systems that we worked with. So our starting point to understand the first thing was we believe that there is no reality that those children are not back in Israel. So this was the main starting point. No way that they're not coming back. And after deciding that we are living as if they're coming back tomorrow morning, we start to examine what do we know about child hostages in the international arena. So of course that there are no many cases around the world involve kidnapping of children in the context of war, but there are incidents that we can learn from. So for example, we have the Entebbe operation in which some children were held hostages for just about over a week. We also identified, of course, the Boko Haram event in Nigeria when 276 girls were kidnapped. And until today, 112 girls are still missing. The girls that return, most of them return pregnant and married the kidnappers, and now they're living with them in the same homes. So this is additional event that needs to be delved into. And the third one, which is ongoing event, is the Ukraine-Russian war, in which tens of thousands of children had been kidnapped. So there is no consensus about the number. Most of the children never return. The few that will return, we cannot identify them or their families, but we know a bit about these incidents. So we acknowledge the fact that there are incidents in the international arena where children were being kidnapped, but there is scarce knowledge in the empirical research, so few research and few clinical, but we identify expert by experience. And this is something that has a lot to do with how we learn from the past, right? How past can really help us in our present challenges. So we went to expert by experience, adults who grew up from Entebbe operations, girls from Boko Haram. We identified one person who was kidnapped in Black September and was held hostage in Jordan for 21 days, and he's still working with me today, David Reeb, and he was 17 years old back then. So we identified everyone who can tell us something about children as hostages, and we just learn from them everything that we can in order to prepare all the system in Israel to the return and welcoming the children. And I want to talk to you about 4 displays of trauma of the unique experience of captivity that were key principles for the development of the guidelines for all professionals. The first one is betrayal trauma. So all of us thought that it will be never again, right? After the Holocaust, we felt that this is our country, this is our home, it will never happen to us again, but it did. And we're feeling like we're not safe anymore. But I want to emphasize this feeling of betrayal for children. For children, the betrayal is not only from the idea that they are safe in their own country and homes, but it also the betrayal of the fact that every child, even children who undergo severe child abuse from their own parents, have the fantasy that if something really bad will go wrong, their parents will protect them. But on the 7th of October, no one was able to protect his children. No matter what they try to do, and the parents try to do everything in their power to protect their children, the brutality of the Hamas gave us no alternative to protect our children. And we have to acknowledge the fact that for children, this is breaking the basic notion of their way they capture the world. Because all the children all around the globe capture the world as something that even if the war thing will happen, someone will rescue me. But of the 7th of October, this idea was broken. And this is the first thing that we need to acknowledge. The second one is termed a lot in the literature as Stockholm Syndrome, right? That the fact that someone who was kidnapped, developing intimate and emotional relationship with the kidnapper. But I want to push away the term Stockholm Syndrome because I think in many ways it have a negative attribution towards the people who were kidnapped and some kind of blaming them towards their feelings. And I want to take the adaptation response from the trauma studies. An adaptation response telling us the following issue. When someone undergoes severe trauma that risks his life, he usually and often does not perform fight or flight. Fight or flight is not relevant in those cases. They acknowledge the fact that the abuse is, or the trauma is going to happen, and this is up to them to survive it in any way that they can. So they're doing a process of identification with their perpetrators in order to learn them, to learn their needs, and this way they can survive. So for example, people who are being kidnapped, and especially children who've been kidnapped, learning their perpetrators and their kidnappers' wills, and learning how to hug them, how to talk to them, how to smile at them. And at the same hand that this is a very important survival strategy, this generates negative self-attribution because children and adults accept themselves to be hero. And a hero is someone who runs away, someone who calls out, help, someone who's trying to fight. It's not someone that hugs a terrorist or sit on his laps or tell him that he loves him in order to survive. So many of the children who use the adaptation response in order to survive will develop feelings of self-blame, guilt, and personal failure. The first issue that we identified by the expert by experience is the fact that being in captivity and then returning back home, it's not like you understand that you're home and now you're starting to evolve into your new life. No, it's taking a lot of time to acknowledge the fact that the trauma ended. How long? So when we learn from the scarce body of knowledge in the international arena, they were talking around 1 week. I must say that now we almost 3 months after the children return, they're still feeling like they're in Gaza. So it's taking a lot of time. So after learning from the international arena and learning from expert by experience, we identified the key systems in Israel that will welcome the children. So of course, the IDF, which is the first stage of the children transferring from Gaza to Israel. And then the second stage is the Ministry of Health. So in Israel, we had 3 hospitals which received the hostages children. So Schneider, which Efrat just discussed. We also have Ichilov and Sheba. So all those 3 hospitals receive the training that I'm going to talk about. And then the third one is, of course, the Ministry of Social Affairs and Social Services, which is the third and longest stage, because the IDF was a few hours, right? And then the stay in the hospitals was around 2 days to 1 week and a half. And then they return to the community. And now in the community, the responsibility and the help they're receiving is from the social affairs and social services. But parallel to this, we're working with the Ministry of Education because our aim is for all those children to be integrated back into their nurseries and their schools. And also we work with child forensic investigations, but I won't get into this because it's I have a lot to say here about their testimonies, and of course to work with the families of the hostages. So what we did, we developed key guidelines for each one of the systems. Efrat gave you a taste from what we did in the hospitals, but for each of the system, we worked with them in order to identify how they should work with the children and how they will move into the next stage. So I will give you a glance into various stages, like one of the things that we prepared for each child, like an emotional balance package. And when you look at this picture, if you ask yourself, for example, about the sunglasses. So one of the first things that we understood from the expert by experience is that moving out from the tunnels or from very dark places, it's so painful for the eyes and it's causing terrible headaches that they will need to have sunglasses. And it turned out to be really, really important for the children, and their friends loved those sunglasses. So for each child, we copy and we did a lot of sunglasses because they gave this to their friends as well. But this is one example of the preparation that we did. The second is the working with the IDF. So in Hatzerim, if you can see the pictures, we worked with them about having toys for children. All the tools are adapted to children, food for children, sitting on the ground on carpets with children. So everything will be very accessible for the children and of course the families. So very early on, in start of November, we had a gathering with all the families at the Israeli president home. And we present them. They were the first one before the system themselves that we present the key principle of how to receive the children. So we created one set of guidelines for all the professionals in the various system and one set of guidelines for the families. And in this meeting, we sat together, we present them the guidelines. And after that, we have individual meetings with each of the families that got the news that their children are coming back, that the grandchildren are coming back, and we really prepare them for very basic things like, what are we doing with shower if the children don't want to take a shower? What are we doing if the child is coming back with a scarf of the Hamas and don't want to take it down? A lot of questions that were feasible and realistic, and we need to deal with it. So after this preparation, and Efrat gave you a glance into when the children return. So after they return to Israel and stay for a short time in the hospital, now they're in the community. Each child has two main figures working with him. One is a coordinated social worker who's working with him and with his family. And the second is a therapist, and I'm working on a weekly basis with each one of this group in order to learn with them about what we're learning from the children and to develop the best practice for those children every week. Meanwhile, we learn from the children about the stories from captivity, and I will be here very short, mainly because of time, but also because of the fact that although those stories are all over, it's really important for me to keep their privacy and not to elaborate about what they told us. So I will really say shortly that the main issues in captivities for children were the separations for family members. Children were isolated. Some of the children were kept captivated alone in dark rooms, only with terrorists. This is a horrific experience for every human being, but especially for a child. The condition of captivity were no human. They didn't have enough food. They didn't have water. They weren't able to shower all those days. They went through terrible emotional abuse. They were repeatedly say, there is no Israel, you have no place to return to, nobody wants you come, you have no choice. And if you think of a way that many times in times of crisis, the thing that helps us the most is the faith, right? The belief that something good will happen to us. So the terrorists strategically try to break the spirits of the children every day. They force them to watch horror movies, killing soldiers, bleeding people. It was terrible. We have a lot of cases of medical neglect, of physical abuse, and severe cases of sexual abuse of children in captivity. How can a child survive captivity, right? So how can those amazing 38 children return to Israel with smiling faces? How can it be? So first of all, the adaptation response that we just discussed, being able to do whatever the terrorists asked them to do in order to survive, was a very important strategy, but it has a price for now. We can see the price. Children who were with significant others, it was life changing for them, and people were helping others. The hostages were such a hero. Even people who didn't know the children, but they saw them, took responsibility on them. Some of the adults who never knew those children kept the quarter of Petah under their shirt and in the middle of the night give it to the children because they know they were hungry. Amazing acts of humanity. And the children, no matter what happened to them, all the time try to hold on into some pieces. For example, if today I will see a butterfly, or if today I will hear a song, or if today nobody will hit me, it's meaning that I will be released to my home. And they really try to hold on to their hope and to their fate. I will shortly say that our journey of reintegration those children back into life is very, very challenging. They face many trauma triggers. Coming back to schools and nurseries is an enormous challenge. They're having really big difficulties to say goodbye to their parents and to stay at schools more than 30 minutes. So we're really working a lot with the educational system, and the educational system doing an amazing work in welcoming them and working with them and to acknowledge their pain. And we're helping them to search for a meaning in their life. Main factors in the children's resilience. So in the child level, I have to say that children are the strongest human being that exists. They're practically living unicorns. I cannot believe how much power they have, how much faith they have after everything they've been through. And they're really trying to allocate reasons to be happy and hold on to this. So this is something really, really significant and meaningful that we're seeing. On the family level, we see that children who have parents, children who have grandparents, not all children have living family members. Some of them are still in Gaza. So it's something that's really, really helping them. The community level, the communities in Israel did an amazing, amazing work in welcoming those children and preparing to them. But something, this picture of the welcoming of the children. So when we worked with all the professionals, we say that maybe the children will need some kind of privacy. But you know, Israelis, we want hugs, we want to do celebration when the hostages are coming back. And the children taught us that the healing power of the people love was very central for them. So for them, all those people waiting for them on the street, welcoming them, crying with them, hugging them, was an amazing gift. And if you remember the emotional abuse they undergo in captivity, when the Hamas terrorists telling them nobody wants you back, and they coming back to Israel, and everybody there wanting them and wanting to welcome them, it means the world to them. So I will end at this point, and I will be happy to answer any question you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmit, for sharing your experiences and ideas, and also especially for mentioning some conceptual ideas and options on first steps to come out of the traumata. There's a question in the chat, several questions. Question for Carmit: what, according to you, will be impacts of events of October 7 on future of mental and emotional state of Israeli children after 10, 15 and more years? This is asked by Shmuel.
Thank you, Shmuel, for this important question. I think it really depends on what will happen here. I think we need to bring back all the hostages. I don't think the Israeli society will be able to deal with hostages still being kept in Gaza. I think that after that, we will need to rebuild all the trust that was broken. And once doing this, I believe that if we will hold on to our values and our faith and our believe in future, people can overcome trauma and have an amazing life. And have a life full of love and full of success and full of significant figures. So I think the critical issue here is whether we will go into direction of building and post-traumatic growth after the 7th of October. And I believe we can do it. I definitely believe we can do it.
Thank you. This is another question by Joel Walters. I've read that there are different approaches to therapy, and the dominant approach encouraging the survivors to talk about their experiences, and the minority of therapists arguing that some children prefer not to talk about their experiences. Can you address this variation among therapists?
Yes, wonderful question. Thank you for that. I think the key principles is to provide the child the ability to choose. So if the child wants to talk, let him talk. If the child don't want to talk, he won't talk. But the most important thing for the therapy is to really work with him, with himself, with herself, and we're doing it in our weekly meetings, to identify whether the child inability to talk is in the professional problem, to hear the stories, because sometimes children telling us horror stories and our replies signal to them that this is too much for us to hear, or whether we signal to the children that we can hear everything, that they have a space to everything they want to talk about. And if they choose not to talk, it's okay. Some of the children are talking everywhere. Some of the children are not talking at all. The most important thing is to provide them the notion that we are here for them. They can talk whenever they want, on whatever they want, and to leave them the choose and the opportunity to decide about their life. Because what is captivity? Captivity is that your autonomy is taken away from you. Your identity is taken away from you. So our main aim is to give them back their autonomy. They're free to choose whatever they want on their life. This is why we're providing them full decision about schools and nurseries. Even for very young children, if they don't want to go to nurseries, we are finding with the social workers ideas how they can meet with their friends, with their parents. We cannot push them, we cannot force them after everything they went through.
Thank you. There is a comment or compliment by Paul Wilson, very informative regarding children's experience of thanks. So no question, just comment. Verena has a question.
Yes, thank you, Carmit, for the question. I would like to ask, I mean, there were children who were together with one or both parents in Hamas captivity, and others who were alone, and they're like this father of Emily Hent or so.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that in the aftermath of this event, do you also work, or are you still in touch with the parents, or do you how do you say, conduct parental work?
Yes. Thank you for this question. Yes, we're working on the system level. So we're working with the children. We're working with the parents, if there are parents. We're working with the siblings. We're doing traumatic therapy with the siblings that were in captivity together, and some of the siblings were separated. Some were in Israel and some were in Gaza. So we need to help them find one another again. But we also acknowledge the fact that we need to continue to support the grandparents, because after the 7th of October, grandparents are not only grandparents. They become parents in every measurement and in every aspect. So we're doing a lot of work with them. 2 weeks ago, we had a really unique gathering of all the families of the returned children. And we're doing an evaluation study of all the work that we are doing with them. So after 1 month, we had a report, and they were the first one that we presented the report to. And we got their feedback, and in order to fine-tune the report. So we will meet with them again in the 3 months and in the 6 months. So they are very core to our work, definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, Martin has a question.
Can you hear me, Carmit?
Yes, hi.
Hi, good evening. You said there is not that much empirical research being done to kids being held hostage for a long time. There may be an interesting case study here in the Netherlands, where I'm from. In 1977, Moroccan youngsters or terrorists, they hijacked a school for 3 weeks in a row. That might be an interesting case, or a valid case to study, to see what this does to kids, although it has been like almost 45 years, yeah, close to it. It might be a valuable addition to the existing literature. Just
Definitely. Thank you so much for this. Definitely.
Okay, thank you so much again, Carmit, for all your input and energy and time for us, and welcome to stay with us here for the rest. And we're going to switch to our third speaker of today. That is Dr. Ida Gebel from Tel Aviv. I'm pleased to give some short notes also about her. Ida Gebel, first of all, she studied history and did her PhD and a doctoral degree in Jewish history. For nearly a decade, Ida delved into research on the ultra-Orthodox Histadrut Poalim, resulting into a monograph and several articles on the subject. In recent years, her research focus still was shifted to the history of Jewish printing in Eastern Europe during the 19th century, especially in the Baltic states. But however, over the past decade, Ida has also been working in teacher training at the Anan College of Education in Haifa. Here she leads the program for academic excellence for students, and she also teaches in the Department of History. Ida Gebel lives in Tel Aviv. She's married and the mother of 6 children. And after October 7, she has become very active as an educational entrepreneur and social activist. And today she will make us now familiar with a project of building a school for children evacuated from southern Israel after October 7. So Ida, thanks very much for coming, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. After 2 so hard lectures, I don't have air anymore. I must say that I'm going to speak about what I'm doing in the last 4 months, and the most important thing that happened to me while I done that I had no time. I had no time for news. I had no time for listening to this kind of stories. And now I sat here and I saw the pictures, and I saw people that I know giving their life back. The picture of Ohad, Ohad's father business is here in my neighborhood, and I know this man. And suddenly to see this picture, so for me it's all new, just like people who are not from here. So thank for the Carmit, thank you, and thank you, Efrat. It was very important. So my story, let's start with that. That's my professional baseline, is that I need time. Historians need perspective to say something about the situation that they research. And I had no time, and I had no point of view as a professional about the story that I'm going to tell you. I have only guts, and with these guts, I'm doing a lot of work in those 4 months. So I need to share my PowerPoint, and I don't have permission. So can you give me?
Make her a co-host.
Yeah, one.
We need to make a co-host. Participants.
And try again and again. Okay, I will start without it, and tell me when I can do that.
No,
In October 7th, like every Israeli, I woke up to a tragedy that I didn't understood in the first hour. I'm a religious woman, and we had a holiday in October 7th, and which means I had no phone, and I had no computer, and I didn't open it because I had no reason to. I took my kids to the shelter and we stayed there again and again and again when they bombed Tel Aviv.
Sorry,
and
you're the co-host.
Oh,
Try to...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And during the holiday, friends of us being called to the army to go back to the army, and I collect to my home the kids of neighbors that their father went to the army to help the mothers during this terrible day that we didn't knew nothing because
she has weak internet.
Yeah,
This is the
right.
problem.
Yeah, what, can you hear us?
It's frozen, I'm afraid.
Yeah, same problem.
Ada, please unmute yourself.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry.
Can you try to share the PowerPoint again?
Yeah, sure. Just a second. I already opened the here. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Okay.
Very good.
In the next few days, not in the next day, in Sunday, we sat home and I said to my kids, go do something. We need to do something. And we didn't know exactly what we can do. Tel Aviv was bombing 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And I understood that we need to activate, to be activated. Now when Will came and tell us, you need to do that or you need to do this. So in Monday, I started during Sunday and Monday, I started to answer to messages that had been sent by WhatsApp groups. And one of the messages was from few families from Sderot who said, we need a rabbi. We're from Sderot is a very religious place and Tel Aviv is less religious. And we want someone who will give us a little faith. So I attached these groups of families, and I attached my rabbi, and I told him they needed you, and I went there in the second day of the war. And after that, I just keep coming. I established a WhatsApp group. And I invited the communities of Tel Aviv to be part of that. And we buy food and we send social workers and psychological person and rabbis all over day by day. And I posted a form that the youth can put themselves in groups and go play with the kids, etc., etc. And day by day, I went to the hotels, and I saw how. And every day when I arrived, they needed something else. Once it was clothes, and after that it was food, and after that it was a home food because they have enough of shawarma and street food. And day by day, I saw they needed something to hold in. And I'm an educational, I believe in education. I won't get into that, but once in my life, I was in the same situation that I was evacuated from my home and with my kids. And I knew from day one that if that is going to take a long time, they need an education system. And that is the most important of feeling normal again. And in October 18th, which meant a week and a half after I went daily to the hotels, I got a call from a friend of mine who is a principal of high school here in Tel Aviv, and religious high school for girls in Tel Aviv. And she told me, I hear from my student that you are her boss. You're sending them to the hotels, you tell them what to do, where to be, what to play, who to play with. Tell me, how do I get into that? And that was the day that that the schools in Tel Aviv started to open for a few hours with the very small groups. And I told her, but you have a school to take care of. And she told me, okay, so tell me how's the school with the girls and with the building story. And I told her, we're going to establish school. In 5 minutes after that, I was in my way to one of the hotels where the people from Sderot were living. And I sat there, and we sat there, my friend and I, with one of the activities people from Sderot, and we said we must establish a system to the religious community from Sderot. Exactly in the same day, the city of Tel Aviv established something like that afternoon for the kids from Sderot to come to a school. Here in Israel, we have a different systems for religious and unreligious education systems. So they established something for everyone, but none of the Orthodox students didn't arrive there. And day after that, I called to the woman in the city hall who is in charge on the education in Tel Aviv, and I told her that it's wonderful what she did, because the most important thing that these people will leave the hotels. They won't be in the same room for 24 hours. So it's wonderful that you take them out, but we need different system for the religious schools. And 2 days after that, in October 2020, we established a system in the school that my friend is principal. It's called Ulpanit. So in the afternoon, after the girls of the students of the Ulpanit left, because in that time we were not allowed to be more than 100 people in the same place in once because of the bombing. And like you can see, it's not exactly school. We have more adults than kids. We didn't learn really. We played with the kids. We held them together. We took them out from the hotels, but not more than that. We had and we decided we need to make it a real school. The problem was a shelter. We needed a bigger shelter to make place that could gathering all the kids together. The picture on that you can see is the way the shelter was when we arrived there. The other side, it's the way it was after 1 week of, I don't know, many of volunteers who came and cleaned it up. And clear, you can see no one touched this place since the 50s. You can see the telephone down here. It's from the 50s. No one but touched this place. And you can, I can't explain the feeling that to take a shelter who is like, you know, like stink and close and bring wonderful people that doesn't ask from what and from just, you need, we are here to help. And they clean the place, and that's the same place that and that is the same place that we make the shelter a kindergarten. So even if the bomb will continue, and they continue, the kids doesn't need to go anywhere. The garden kids doesn't need to go anywhere. They're in the safest place in school. And in the moments we another picture from the kindergarten, and in the moment that we had we had a school, we understood that we can brought how many kids that we want to the school and built a real school. When I said we, that's 3 of us. The one in the left is, you can see me. Next to me, it's Hani, the principal of the Ulpanit, and next to her, it's Hannah. She was the principal, and she took a year off. So we came together. We're not from exactly the same. We don't agree about everything in life, but we all appreciate very much one each other, and we become triple. Every decision we're making together, every step in the road we are doing together, and that's until today. I mean, during the first lecture, we've been writing stuff about tomorrow. And in the beginning of November, we established a school. We get a name. I didn't translate because it's in Hebrew. You must understand Hebrew to understand the meaning of the name that we gave to the school. We called him Mashiv Ruach, return the spirit. But it's not in Hebrew. Spirit and wind, it's the same. And in the holiday that we had in October 7th, we had a prayer, a very important one, about the winter. And we didn't pray it because we were in the shelters instead of in synagogues. So bring back the winter and bring back the spirit of life. It's in Hebrew in the same word. So that's the meaning of Meshiv Haruach. And we're gathering the parents, and we tell them that's the plan. We're established here a school for all the kids from the religious school all over Sderot. And the day after that, we're gathering all the kids, all the girls from the Ulpanit, and the Prime Minister of Tel Aviv welcomed them. And since then until next week, it's a school from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. It's not longer circles with more adults and youth. It's school. You can see desk and chairs and teacher and kids, and and they read books and they wrote reports about book reports, and that's the 3rd and the 4th grade. With books that they read in the class and sentence that give them strong that they read from the books. And I will translate. The kids here down here took a sentence from this book who said, "I'm glad that you all here with me." And the kids over here next to his father, who were from the police forces, said it couldn't be able to not love kid like you. I mean, we taught them, but we also speaks about a lot about their health, they strong. We have teachers, and we have psychological stuff, and we have everything that school need. And it's very, think about that. It's not that in Israel we have too many teachers that sat at home and waiting us for call them and tell them, hey, we have a new school, come and teach. We needed to find teachers that already retired. We needed students in the middle of educational degree, etc. And it was very hard, but the people of Israel are so looking forward to volunteer that it was that it's becoming easy, but it's an issue. The kids that we have is kids that been in Sderot and in Kiryat Shmona, but I want to speak about the kids from Sderot in October 7th. And one day we had a project. You can see it's a picture of Sderot, and we told them to find a place that they are missing in Sderot and to build it with the plastiline and the colors, and you can see all over the desk here works that they did. I want to show you one work, which is, and I prepare you, it's hard to see. Two kids, two brothers, that the uncle had been murdered outside of their home. So it's two works that they did. In one, you can see a Hamas terrorist who shoots a man who's still in the blood. And in the other side, you can see a small pool that they have in their garden, in outside their house. It's a fish pool with all the blood that they saw in this pool during October 7th. I must say, these two kids, the specific two kids, we sent them to a therapist. We sent them to a hospital. It wasn't enough to see a psychological, once a week. They needed more than that, a lot of more than that. They needed a very unique care. They saw stuff that nobody needs to see, and more than that, kids in their age. But we have good days, not only bad. And in the good days, we're taking them to trips in Tel Aviv, because it's very hard to sit and learn. They have no, they're not going home back in the end of the day. They're going to the hotels. They are not free by mind to sit and learn. So we try to give them a different kind of learning, so that we are going a lot of traveling. You can see here our third class with the teacher, and you see the soldier in the other side of the picture. He's from the city hall. He's Sgan Rosh Hayir. Help me, Boaz. Sgan Rosh Hayir? Deputy Mayor of Tel Aviv, who left his office once a week, and he was guide teacher, and he take them every week for a tour around the area to learn about Tel Aviv. And after a few weeks, he joined the army too. And before he left, he came to say goodbye. And you can see what a lovely picture. That's the way we work. And good people invited us to learn by doing a wonderful thing in Tel Aviv. You can see they went to the sea, and we have 4 different sports teachers, because we find out, and 2 art teachers, because we found out that every day They need in the schedule something with the body. They can't only sit and listen. They must do something with the body. So we have a lot of times of sport and art, etc. And lately we started to say goodbye. Most of them need to go back to their homes. Finally, the state decided that it's safe enough. So last week we gathering all the girls from the Ulpanit and all the kids of Mashiva Ruach, our kids, together, and we sing a song. I'm sorry it's not ready yet, so I can't show you, but I can send it after that. And it's supposed to be ready in 2 days. But you can see all the guests and all the hosted, all the girls from who hosted us that gathering together. And if the speakers before me spoke about the strength of these people, the belief that everything will be okay, that we will start over. I think that my story and the people that I didn't mention by names, but so many people, something like over 40 people who are part of this project, not because someone tells us, not because it's our job. We are all volunteers to do that. Even part of us get paid from the country after a few weeks when the country understands the situation. But we all started as volunteers. Some of us continue as volunteers, and that's the strength of our people. We know that every time that we will fail, the people around us will be there to hold us. And I'm saying that as a daughter of Holocaust survivor, and I'm saying that as an Israeli who lived here all over her life, and in the worst and in the best, we know to fall down and pick ourselves together again, and we will do that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ida, for making us familiar with this impressive example of this cool, just like kind of grassroots and so many volunteers. And there's still some time for question. There's nothing in the chat right now. Boaz.
I will ask Ada, if it's okay. What about the authorities? I mean, you had an idea, the principal gave her school, the girls came to volunteer, people came, but usually bureaucratic systems are not easy to work with. So, I mean, this is the city of Tel Aviv, everything should be organized, everything should be professional. So how did this interaction between the volunteers and the municipality work?
It's very hard. We started, like I said, we started by our own power, with our own people. During the time, the education system, the education office arrived and saw that we are good. So okay, you're good, keep doing what you're doing. We will pay. And then the city from Sderot came and said, okay, you're doing everything good. Okay, keep doing what you're doing, we will pay. The only one who was with us from the first moment was the city of Tel Aviv. Like I said, from the 18th of October 18th, when I called to the woman in the city, Sharon, her name is Sharon, and she told me all what you need bus to bring the kids to the school, and here 2,000 shekels, use it. And after 2 weeks that we done, and they saw we're doing good, we're doing well, they came and help us mostly with the money, but not only. In the first week, I called to a friend of us, Boaz, and I told him we need books, and he helped me to find find books, study books for the kids. And then we couldn't keep doing that. We needed after a while, I called to the city in Tel Aviv, and they brought us chairs and tables. And after that, I called to the city of Sderot, and they brought computers and print. I mean, it was on me. I called and asked for things from each and every one, and if one told me no, I went to the other side, and they told me yes, but it was on me. And I must say that not every place is like that. There is a school that no, or every school has someone like me. Every school that outside of Sderot or Kiryat Shmona has someone like me who said, "Here I am. What do you need?" Because that stuff cannot be from above to down. It's always from down to above.
There is
Yes.
thank you. There is a question by Nechama Kreniman-Bauch.
Hi, I thought I'll speak if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious. I know you probably can't go too much into detail, but you mentioned psychologists, therapists that were there, and you mentioned the extreme case, but I was wondering on the day-to-day level, how were they working? Were they working consulting the teachers, or was there one-on-one therapy, or was there something in a group? If you could, I'm just curious. And a second question. Yeah, and I have another question, but we'll see. Yeah.
Like I said, they're all volunteers. So I've got one day with someone who works with the teacher, advisor who works with the teacher, and 2 days of psychological person, a wonderful one, volunteer again. They both volunteers who works with specific kids that we saw that need help, and he works with the kids and with the parents. And one day, there is a woman who came, and she had also for kids, only kids. I mean, it's an individual. We built for everyone who came and asked to volunteer. We built we had something that we needed for him. So we have one who helped to the teacher, and few who helps to the kids, and one with the garden, with the kindergarten, who helps to the kids and to the staff. So all of the above.
All of the above.
All the above. Because
Okay.
we don't have one person who came for 5 days. Like everyone came for in the free day or something like that.
Thank you. I don't know. Is there time to ask a second question?
All.
Okay, so the second question is just, I think Efrat was asked that, but I was curious with all the volunteering and all the hard work, was there any thoughts or anything to prepare staff for burnout, to how to, I can't even think about it in Hebrew, shchika. To think about how to think long term so that people are not like putting all their energy at the beginning and then feeling too tired.
We are very much we have a problem with that. In the beginning, I can say about myself, in the beginning the academic world didn't work, so I was free, and I was there 5 times a week. And in the afternoon, we had meetings and phone calls and parents and the city and the education. Like I said, all the associates that help us. It took me from the 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 and 11 in the night, in the beginning. And after around Hanukkah like said, December, we started to teach in the academia, and I didn't came anymore. I came like 1 or 2 times a week, and Hannah, that was free enough, that she was in the year off, she took all the stuff that I usually help her to do. So she's very tired right now because she fights a lot of fights without helping, and teachers are tired because they're supposed to be retired, or they're supposed to have a day off. We all want a day off, and we don't have day off like 4 months now. So it's a good question. I don't have a good answer, but it's coming to an end next week. People of Sderot go back home, and the people from Kiryat Shmona are a smaller group. They will be part in the regular school of Tel Aviv. We will close our doors next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eda, also for investing so much time and giving us so much impressions here. We are nearly at the end. Is there any, Verena, you want to add something? Thank you so much to the audience also for the question and following us for such a long
Maybe
time.
I'll say a word or two.
Yes, for us.
How do we get the screen right?
Yeah, how many you had to? Yeah.
We get nice people, but
I don't think that helped.
okay. I would like to say one thing that came up in all the presentation. This is something really amazing about Israelis. I mean, we had a lot of fights, Israelis, before October. And as people who follow me know, I'm still in the reserves from 7 October. I mean, I haven't taught at all this semester. I mean, I'm teaching from the car and all sorts of, and Daniela is taking one class of mine. And it's really, what keeps me going is the Israelis. They are amazing people. Really, like you go to you hear about the school. People are saying, here I am, and they're doing. You hear about, from Carmit, we heard about the importance to the children of Israelis, of the support from the general public. We see this in so many issues that people are supporting, and it's we always knew it exists in Israeli society. I think now it's very, very strong, and all these stories come back to the same thing, that there's something encouraging in Israeli society. There's encouraging because we all have our problems, and we're going to keep arguing probably quite hard further on. But there's something special about I think the resilience of society under fire. And we heard Ada, and I know it from your own, people in Tel Aviv were under fire. This is not like an international issue that people find bone fragments on their porch, like Yaron, or people having to go every time into the shed, or this photo of nurses taking newborns and getting in, each one taking 1 or 2 and getting into the staircase, which are supposed to be more safer than the rooms. There is something very special, and I think this is I think Israeli society is again finding that it has a lot of strength of doing things together, and I just hope that we'll be able to move it on. For the children, of course, it's very important, and we see it. But so I think we can thank the speaker.
Yeah.
That's,
Great thanks to all the speakers once more, and yeah, wishing lots of power, and I think everybody has to think a lot for the rest of the eve. And so if you want to join, anybody who is interested tomorrow, Verena